Well, a hearty shalom to you. Jeffrey Seif here. Hope you're doing okay out there or the other end of this camera. You never know. Feel free to contact me, by the way, and I'll run you down, you run me down, and really just hope you're holding up. You know, Barry and I are walking this out just like you are. It's not a lot of fun. We're endeavoring to make the most of the time. I've gotten to do a number of things that I wouldn't otherwise do because I'm running, down life's highway pretty fast and hard. But I hope you're faring well in this particular season. Thank you for wanting to participate in Sar Shalom. I'm so appreciative of Susanna for helping with this format. In addition to what she does, Ruthia is great to communicate, to get things out. Donna used to do a lot of the email exchanges and so forth, but rather than an email, I wanted to have a format, and we're just so blessed to be able to develop those formats. By the way, I found a building in anticipation of us getting together down the road. Someone said, are you looking seriously at a building now, Jeffrey? I found something. It was affordable. I didn't know. I just sent it out to a few people. What do you think? Hadn't even thought about it seriously or prayed about it. But I just do believe that we have a future. I live my life that way. A lot of people get discouraged, and I know that not everything is the way I want it in life right now at the moment. I was supposed to be in Israel a few weeks ago, canceled. I was supposed to be in Cambridge a few weeks ago, canceled. Well, rescheduled, pushed back. There were a number of things that I had on mind. Stop. I don't like that. But it is what it is. But what really helps me is hope. I kind of look over the horizon. I'm seeing some good news breaking over the horizon, some rays of sunlight shining through the fog when I hear what our president says and things that are giving cause for some optimism. So, well, what I want to do is look at Leviticus with you, and it is so apropos to the moment in this week's parasha. There's two of them, beginning in chapter 12, and then we'll go to the Metzora, leprosy. We're looking at the priests that are dealing with infection, disease, quarantine, the need to do that. I've spoken about that already in conjunction with the Leviticus series, going through the Torah. It is so apropos now. In chapter 13, we're told in Leviticus, in verse 2, when a man has a swelling on the skin of his body or a scab or a bright spot, and it becomes the plague mark of tsarat, it's leprous in his flesh, then it should be brought to Aaron the priest, the Kohen, or one of his sons, the Kohanim. And the Kohen is to examine the plague on his skin. Now, it's interesting today, if someone has an anomaly, they go to a medical professional. That's what they do. Today, someone has a spiritual issue, discouragement, whatever, a religious crisis, family thing, they talk to the pastor. We're not used to thinking of a religious personality vested with authorization to conduct these examinations. Things have evolved. It used to be that the priests were responsible for this. When we think of priests, you think of Catholicism. The guy does Eucharist and throws around some incense and does a worship service. There's 168 hours in a week, and they're in the priest doing service. The priest is in the church doing services for a few of those. That's what a priest does. Well, no. There's the tabernacle that's set up here when we think of priesthood, but priesthood more than that. And here they are, in effect, examining plagues. In verse 9, when one has the plague, he is to be brought to the priest, says it again. and the priest is to examine him. Now, if in verse 11 it's chronic, in other words, if the priest observes that it is a disease in the skin of his flesh, the Kohen is to pronounce him unclean, and he is to isolate him, for he is unclean. And again, when we think of unclean here, it's not spick and span versus dirty. It's a kind of religious unclean. But it's not simply an unclean that means you can't go to a religious service. It's an uncleanliness that then warrants, in addition to that, removal from the camp, isolation. Isolation. Until such time as it can be determined that you're good to go. You know, I got an email the other day from, the police department to go in and check, all the first responders, to go to a COVID-19 testing center to make sure I'm good to go. So I went there for the test a couple days ago. I got a call last night, and they said, "Oh, I'm clear, good to go." Well, I thank God for that. I do. But I knew that I was, I'm not waiting for the phone call. I ran 7 or so miles this morning. I'm doing a lot of push-ups and what have you yesterday. Ran 9, 10, 11 miles the day before, I forget which. I'm really trying to, keep in shape, but I know I'm robust for a 64-year-old as opposed to being sickly. But the point is, I had to get clear. There needed to be some, LabCorp needed to give a thumbs up in order for me to carry on. Well, in ancient Israel, there was a timeout for people that represented with certain anomalies here. And the priest was the gatekeeper. Time out. Now, and if they were pronounced unclean, they went into isolation. Now, if the situation improved, now you get to chapter 14 and go there with me, please. Then Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, "This is the Torah of the one with Sarat in the day of his cleansing." That when it's apparent that he's better, then there's instructions given about a certain ritual that's to be enacted. We're told the Kohen is to go in verse 3 and examine him. And behold, if the mark of Sarat is healed in one with Sarat, then the Kohen is to command the certain things that he's supposed to do to, in effect, this public and ritual moment to identify that he is clean. And with that pronunciation then allowed to resume, to take his or her place in society again. That is to say, the person was adjudged to be diseased, and they were quarantined, they were removed. And then in due time, they were then allowed to reintegrate back into society. And the priest was there as the gatekeeper for all that. It was religious. Now today, we have gatekeepers too that are talking about a cessation from society, putting things on hold, and then reintegrating back into it. We have a Dr. Fauci, we have a Dr. Birx, we have, the Vice President's Commission on, Coronavirus Task Force, we have the President of the United States, we have the Center of Disease Control, we have the World Health Organization. Some questions have been raised about that. Well, things have become very sophisticated in antiquity. The priest was tutored up in that. And I should say, not just in biblical antiquity. You probably would know that the Pharisees themselves were bivocational. And some great religious Jewish teachers were physicians as well. Maimonides, called Rambam, Rabbi Moshe ben Maimun, was a physician to Muslims, by the way. And then he was a rabbi as well. Interesting. And not interesting, Jews and Muslims used to get along a lot better than they do today, just put it like that. In any case, the point here in all of this is to find some kind of commonality between the ancient world and the modern. You and I find ourselves at a place in time where there's a timeout, just like some people were back then. And there's some mechanisms in antiquity to facilitate a timeout, and then in due course of time to reintegrate. And I know we're in a timeout. I know we're going to be reintegrating as well. I hope that you're being able to claim the time. We're going to get back busy and robust and be blowing and going and moving. Spend this time to get closer to your loved ones, please. Spend this time to do some kind of inventory about ways that you can be improving in your own life and performance. Take this time to get into better health. You know, I mean, I really lament that I can't go to the gym. Well, bummer on that. Well, okay, well, I can't go throw weights around. But, you know, every time, you know, every hour I'll drop down and do a bunch of push-ups till my arms get sore. You know, but you figure out the guy gets up at 6 o'clock in the morning. By the time I go to bed at 8 o'clock at night, and I go to the restroom every hour on the hour, sometimes twice, you know, you figure I'm buffing these babies up. You know, it's, you know, we all got to play cards. We got to play with the cards we're dealt, as they say. So I hope you're making the most of the time. And I want to let you know I'm looking forward to seeing you. And I want you to know Barry loves you. I love you. I thank you that you care to participate in this community. And we're so glad to have you on board. You know, some have inquired. I haven't mentioned it at all, and I'm certainly not going to mention it here. For those that want to make a contribution to the ministry, you can go to our website. There's a donate button. Contact, you know, Donna. You can send a check. I don't want to push it. It's all in God's hands. But may the Lord bless you. Barry and I love you. I look forward to seeing you soon. Shabbat shalom. God bless.